This is how to make good social media content for boring niches. Now, what if I told you that these boring industries actually had the biggest opportunity to stand out? The problem isn't the niche, it's how you package it. And today, I'll show you how to take that so-called boring industry and turn it into content that people can't stop watching. We are going to cover today challenge, story, broad interest, and skit content. And it's gonna be really jam-packed with information for you to go away and action. I'm just gonna get straight into it on the screen. I'm gonna give you takeaways and examples every step of the way, as I said, so make sure you follow along for the next 10, 15 minutes. So let's start with the issue. The number one issue is inherently, if we speak about lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, whatever it is, anything that is inherently boring, people say it's too dense for me to talk about finance. The issue is that the majority of the content is commercial style content. It's selfish content, it's focused on the business and the services, it's the wrong format and it's the wrong style. And this all leads back into it being boring topics. Now you can take these so-called boring topics and turn them into really interesting videos if you understand what the goal is, first of all. So, if we start with the goal, are you thinking about it from an individual perspective or from a business perspective? If you're an individual, are you trying to get more work? Are you trying to get more top of funnel awareness? Are you trying to build a bigger business, change your career path? You want to get off your current path, you want to change your trajectory. You want to become a creator maybe. Maybe that's how it then affects your decision-making process. If you're a business, you're a big business, you don't want to do some of these things. Obviously you want to get more work. Obviously you want more top of funnel awareness. You want to build a bigger business. But the other two that are really, really important is maybe you want to attract talent. You want to attract employees. You want to show off what you have to give, what it's like at the workplace, how beneficial it is to work for you. And maybe you want to reduce some of your marketing budgets. If marketing is a huge expenditure of your business, then all of these things tie back into, okay, let's create good content. Because the issue is, I didn't want to pull any individual pages up, but you could go and search. I could search right now. I could search lawyers in Brisbane. I'd pull up the 10 top results of lawyers. I'd go onto their Instagram and it would be just a bunch of photos, random graphics, Canva made images. No one's going to look at that, and it's just a waste of the person's time that's posting it. So it is actually just pointless posting it. And if they don't have a goal of growing through social media, or if they don't see the benefit in it, then that's absolutely fine. That's not for these people. This is for the people that see the benefit in social media, that want to understand how to create better content, but are lacking the guidance on what kind of content they should be posting, or what other people in their niches are posting, or what they could relate to their niche. So as I said, I'm just gonna get straight into it. There's nothing really else to set this up with. If I was gonna do challenge style content, people love a challenge. They like to see payoff versus result. They like to see, can someone achieve something? Can someone do something in some sort of time frame? Challenges are always great because there's always gonna be the people that wanna see them fail. There's gonna be the people that wanna see them succeed. So, great example straight off the bat. This guy here, Trent Miller, he has like almost 2 million followers across all pages, and all he does is run through his houses.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I don't know what just happened there. All he does is run through his houses, okay? There would be, I would guess, almost every single real estate agent in the world would kill to have 2 million followers and this kind of top of funnel awareness. He does nothing different. He literally just runs through his houses and he has fun with it. Now, he's a young kid, so he obviously didn't care about what people thought about him. But the reality, the proof is in the pudding. I don't even need to pull up the video here. It is stupid, it is fun, it is different. And because of that, people love his content and they go through and watch it consistently. 36 million views on one video. I don't need to say more on this. I've pulled up one just short example of someone copying his format that works. 60-second sprint through a house. It's not in English, so I didn't know what she was saying, obviously, but again, 26,000 likes on one video. That is incredible scale and incredible kind of reach. So doing something different. Can I run through a house in 60 seconds, in a minute? People aren't expecting that, and that's good. You don't want to just be like every other real estate agent. You don't want to just be like every other lawyer that does all the same stuff. You want to differentiate yourself because that's what cuts through on social media. This versus that. Okay, another good example. People like to see the difference of incumbent versus new idea. Old way of doing things versus new way of doing things. AI versus non-AI, whatever it is, employee versus employee. Like going through and actually creating content of like pitting two things against each other, always such a repeatable format of content that people love to consume. I'll get into like more ideas in a second, so just bear with me. Buying X content. So, you know, this is how much $2.7 million gets you in this suburb. This is how much $3 million gets you in Sydney. It has, and this is on a lower point, but I'll just touch on it briefly. This has such broad reach appeal because it doesn't matter if I don't have $3 million right now to go and buy a house. I'm still interested to see what that's going to cost. Even if I have more or less money, even if I don't live in that suburb, even if I don't live in that state or country, every now and then, like I get served with a video and it's, you know, this is what $20 million gets you in New York. I still watch it. I don't want to buy a $20 million apartment in New York. It's just inherently interesting. So this is why it's a really good format of content. Now, I put a different example in here because I'm not just talking about real estate agents. This guy pulls up nice cars and goes, this is how much it costs to finance this car. This is how much you need to budget to buy this car. Again, not many people do this, but it's so interesting. This guy's built a massive audience purely based on random things like this. Half the people, maybe even 99% of the people watching these videos are never going to be able to afford that $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 Porsche, but they still are interested to watch it. And that is good top of funnel content. Last one, doing X in X time frame. So people love understanding how long something gets, well, like how long it takes to do something. So it's like, how I would invest my first $1,000 in 2025, like $1,000 in 2025, like a sum of money in X time frame. How I would make my first $100,000 before I hit 30. How I would make an extra $50,000 a year. Now you may think these are just related to finance people, but it's not, because you could say it from the lens of, as an accountant, here's how you could budget to make an extra $50,000 a year. As a lawyer, here is the business structure you need, or here is the tax structure you need. Like obviously that's an accounting thing, but you can start to put your own lens and expertise on it. If I wanted to dream result in time frame, people love that style of content. Even if it's a side hustle, if I wanted to make an extra $500 a week from my own expertise, here's how I would do it. Here's how I would do it in my field. Here's how I would do it in my area of expertise. If we go through kind of here, I've just written some notes here because I think I've briefly touched on all of the ideas, is you don't need it to be, okay, here's how I would finance this car. Here's how I would finance a Porsche. It could be, here's the tax structure you need to buy a Porsche. Here is the legal structure you need to buy this Porsche. Here is the tax structure offshore versus onshore for XY benefits. If you're a FIFO worker and you want to minimize your tax bills, people don't talk about this stuff enough, but I can almost guarantee that's all people want to know about anyway. Like they care about those intricate details, but in an interesting way. And it's almost seen as, I don't know, boring or too niche or taboo to talk about, but this is the content that works. And these are the questions that people have. And the more that you talk about it, every time someone has that question, they're either going to come to you for that content, or they're going to book a call or an appointment to come and see you to get you to do it for them because they know you have a better perspective on it. Going on the challenge kind of ideas as well is, again, you can take an idea versus an idea. You can have the old thing versus the new thing. You can have a brand versus a brand, again, from your perspective and your lens. Say I was doing content on a brand versus a brand. I would literally make it about this brand's content versus this brand's content. If I was a lawyer, I would say this brand's like tax structure versus this one's tax structure, why they're set up in different states and how that maximizes or minimizes their tax, how they could pay less tax if they set up in Singapore. You're not going to do it and they're not doing it, but it's just interesting and it gets the people talking. It shows that you understand these bigger meta topics at a high level and you're a high level thinker. If we talk about story content, this one's really hard to get right. There's probably only one person that I would say legitimately to go and look at as a really good format of repeatable content, and it's the Charleston Accountants. Now, he sits down, nice chair, nice setting, and he tells war stories about his days. I had two brothers come in for this thing once. I had XYZ come in for this thing. And it's like almost like the grandfather telling you these old stories, and you're hooked in, you want to listen, you like it. So for a younger person, it might be a bit harder to replicate this exact format, but the actual outcome is he sits down and he doesn't directly talk about, here's how I would reduce your tax bill. Here's how we reduce your tax bills. Here's what you need to do if you have a big tax bill. That's boring content because that doesn't affect everyone. But if he turns it into a story of, I had this guy come in once and he had a $800,000 tax bill and he only had $300,000 in cash to pay it. And so this is what we did to reduce it down to $300,000, legally. That instantly is a much more interesting story. So finding ways, things that you do that you think are just day to day that may actually affect someone else would be a really good way to start to think about it. Again, School of Hard Knocks goes up and interviews millionaires, billionaires, but this guy that he's interviewed more than once has a law firm, and he talks about his law firm more than himself being a lawyer. He talks about the stories, he talks about the people, he talks about building the law firm. He's like this really old school kind of knowledgeable character. And the outcome is he has 58,000 followers. He's a billionaire. Like, people know him for him because he has stories to tell, and he shares those stories with people, and he's consistently posting and talking about how he sees the world and what he thinks and how he reacts to different news takes. Like when news comes out, he'll do a reaction to it and he turns it into a story of like, here's how we would fight this, or here's how we acted against this, or here's how this is going to play out. So he's really good at telling stories. On the story front still, what I've written here is there is a huge gap, I believe, in the market. So you type in how to make money, how to build a business, and 1,000,001 how to build clothing brands, ecom brands, service agencies, etc., everything. But there's no real service-based businesses. So there's no like lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, all this kind of stuff talking about how they built their own financial freedom or how they built their own multi-million-dollar businesses, because it's seen as something that I guess is more about an internet business style of content. So there is a huge gap for people to be talking about this. There are lots of successful, there's probably more successful lawyers, accountants, etc. out there in the world that have become millionaires through either working up to become a partner or that have worked up to build their own firms that no one talks about. And so it's a really good opportunity for people to start talk about this. And you could mold these two formats together where you've got more of an authoritative, elevated style of content, but here's how I built my business. Here's how I created financial freedom for my family. Here's how I created generational wealth for my family through my work. And this guy does this really well. So these three tie in really, really nicely. It's a really good example of good content. Broad interest topics. Now this is something that is so undeniably untapped because it's hard to keep your finger on the pulse. And lots of them are shots in the dark. But again, it's relevant. And if you get it right, you can go crazy viral consistently. So when I say trending news, trending topics, when someone goes and buys a big house, when someone goes and buys something or does something that makes the news, make a video about it, but don't become just a news reporter. Say, okay, Lorna Jane buys 9 perfect strangers Byron Bay retreat. Okay, here's how much I think it costs, and here's how much her monthly repayments would be. Or here's how much it would cost of a deposit to go and buy whatever it is, a multi-million-dollar retreat. Say it was $20 million. Here's how much income you need to go and finance a $20 million deal. Random stuff like that, that shows you're an expert, that shows that you're tapped in, that shows that you know how higher level topics work, is just good social media content. Now, you're probably not going to get any work from it, but the undeniable effect is you grow a bigger social profile, you're growing an audience, you're getting more eyeballs on you, which in turn is good because a rising tide lifts all ships. Again, Porsche drops a new car. Put it up there, do a green screen. Here's how much money you need to finance the new Porsche. Here's how much the tax credits are going to cost. Here's how much it costs to get it in Australia. Whatever it is that's your expertise and your lens, here's the accounting structure you need to be able to finance a Porsche. So simple. When someone signs a big deal, when like a big AFL deal hits the news lines, like, he signs a $2 million a year deal. What's that look like from a law perspective, from a tax perspective? What's that look like from whatever perspective you're coming at it from? Like, there's so many open opportunities, and there's always new news that you can talk about these things. This guy here essentially has built this huge audience, but he talks a lot about just like what's in their garage, and he just does celebrity breakdowns of what cars celebrities drive. You could do the exact same thing for whatever it is that you're an expert on and that you have to talk about. Here's how Brad Pitt structures his like movie earnings in the Cayman Islands, like breaking down things like that are inherently interesting, that are broad topics people will consume, and they will consistently consume because they're either going to argue about it, share it, whatever it is. Another one that is done but not by enough experts, I think, is here's how niche topic affects broad audience. So here's, again, I've already touched on this one, but like, let's check out what $800,000 buys you in Queensland. It is niche topic because there's only a few people that want to spend $800,000 in Park Ridge in Queensland, but it affects a broad audience because it's interesting to a whole lot of people. They like comparing. It's that comparison style content. Here's how to drive an AMG. Lots of people know what AMG are. It's a $190,000 car. Lots of people are never going to be able to afford it, but they're still interested to know how they possibly could afford it or how they could potentially make it work. As I said, all of these things, niche topic, but broad appeal, and it can affect a broad audience. The last one is skits. So there's this car dealership in America that does all these random skits, and this is like a rip of...
Should we go to the sun deck?
So it's like a rip of, I guess, Love Island or one of those shows, and they're just doing like funny skits consistently. They have paid actors that come in and just do funny skits, and they get crazy amounts of views consistently. Now, they obviously have a very unique style, and they're tapping into who they know their audience is going to buy into. But skits have a place on social media. They always will, because it's either entertaining or it's educational. And skits obviously fall into the entertaining aspect. And so if you can get this right, you can cut through so well. There are some other examples here of random pages I found to show you of brands, businesses doing niche humor with broad appeal. So this game store, it's niche humor because it's like game store humor, but it has broad appeal because they play into stereotypes all the time, which is a really important part. Again, this one, niche humor. It's all about like lawyer humor, but it has broad appeal because it's like ragging on lawyers, and they're making jokes about lawyers, and they're playing into those stereotypes. Now, this style of content obviously isn't as serious, and it's not going to bring you huge amounts of clients potentially. But if you're looking for some top of funnel awareness, if you want to play around with it a little bit, if you want to have fun with it and make it a bit more lighthearted, then these are all the things that you need to be thinking about. And so there was 4 topics that we touched on there with examples, kind of broken them down. If you want more help, if you want someone to come in and say to you, these are exactly what you need to be posting, you want all the examples, then hit the link in the description and book a call, and we can see if we can help you out.